I'm 24 and you're 25, and we have wrinkles around our eyes as if we're like 40. Look at this.
Dude, we're hustlers. Hey, what's up? This is Coach Jim Elli with ZAO Strength, and we also have Seba here.
Hi, what's up?
What's up, man?
What's up?
What's get up? Today we're going to talk a little bit about what ZAO Strength is.
Yes.
What is community-driven programming, and what's the difference between community-driven programming and one-on-one coaching, and how we think each of those can help you. I want to talk a lot about the goal and our vision with the company.
Yeah.
If you're watching this now, then you're aware, likely, that we have just launched the ZAO Strength training app and the ZAO Strength community. So I want to talk a little bit with Seba about what that is. Like, what is the community? But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the goal of ZAO Strength. So I started ZAO Strength initially in February with the idea generation. And I was actually talking with one of our coaches, Tyson, about what would it mean if we were to change the game in like the strength community.
Yeah.
And Tyson basically had been talking with me a lot about kind of sustainability in training and sustainability in strength. And I didn't really know exactly what that meant for a while. But over time, I recognized that one of the aspects of strength training that was not as emphasized was like the wholesomeness of strength training. You know, you and I collectively have probably worked with, I don't know, probably over a few hundred athletes.
Yeah, I think I didn't even work with that much, but I have my clients for a long time now, so my turnover isn't that great.
Yeah,
but,
that's good.
It is good.
No, that's bad. We want to increase that turnover, baby.
we want to be like real bad coaches.
Yes.
And pretty much have a new client every month, you know?
Yeah, and we want the first client that signs up with us to leave, but as long as we get more clients per month, then it doesn't matter, you know? Yeah. But on a real note, you know, that's one of the things that is really a priority that I wanted to make when I was thinking about the company. Our motto is strong for life because there are so many different skill sets and tools and resources that we've developed and acquired, and the knowledge that we've gained over time as coaches and as a team, that we think it's really important that we can share that with everyone and that we can emphasize that. Not just, oh, hey, you know, this is a thing, like sustainability is a thing, and then scoff about it because everyone knows that the only thing that matters is performance. But really, like, being strong for life is more than just the number on the bar.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the main goals is to cultivate that culture of strength.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting. You talked about performance, you know, the performance aspect of it. And I think many people immediately associate sustainability with decreased performance, which is kind of weird, right? It's like, oh, you need to, I don't know, like it's almost like in order to be sustainable, you cannot be a high performing athlete. And I feel like that's definitely a myth. Just because there needs to be some sacrifice. I'm not saying, you know, there's no sacrifice, but there's also sometimes unnecessary sacrifice. And I feel like having a sustainable strength approach may look different for somebody who's just, you know, more like Gen Pop, for instance, or somebody who's a high-performing athlete. But I know that for me, I've been a competitive athlete in bodybuilding and powerlifting, you know, and I know that you can sacrifice so much that you actually have athlete burnout. And that is really sad, because coming into the sport and with the mindset of, you know, almost like, oh, that is so great, you know, I love the sport. It's almost like I obsessively love the sport, and then ending up at a point where you almost quit is pretty sad in my opinion. So I think having that sustainable strength approach for, I don't know, more normal athletes, but maybe even like high performing athletes is a very interesting topic and a very important topic too.
Especially with high performing athletes. We talked about this earlier today about sometimes fun is sustainable and the thing that leads to improved performance.
Oh yeah.
Like sometimes actually having a sustainable approach leads to sustainable strength gain, like performance gains.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult for some athletes, especially someone like yourself, when, you know, you first started like getting into this. It was like everything matters in the gym and nothing else. It's like the gym is number one, nutrition is number two, and sleep is number three. And then, I mean, I'm not saying that's exactly how you treated it.
Yeah. But I get what you're saying. Yeah. I also think it's like people, especially, you know, like the whole cult of perfectionism and optimization and stuff, which is really big in bodybuilding and powerlifting, because you just want to have an edge on the other competitor. It's like, oh, there seems to be no place for instance, mental health, right? Or like joy. I would consider joy or being a part of mental health too. And you start to realize, or at least for me, it may not actually impact your, you know, your, I don't know, immediate performance in the gym. But over the long run, like we really tend to underestimate the impact of those factors. Another thing I like to talk about, for instance, is like coach-client relationship. You know, people talk about cycling caffeine, for instance. But if you have a bad relationship with your client and he's constantly upset and he didn't buy in your program, that might actually have a way bigger impact than you know your supplementation routine.
Yeah.
So I think being aware of, you know, like mental health issues and how you relate to your training emotionally makes a huge difference in terms of what you get out of it in the long run and how you feel about it.
And especially because a lot of this stuff is unregulated. Like there's no requirement for you to become a strength coach, at least with the online community. I mean, there might be one if you want to work with a football team or, you know, a sports team. But when it comes to becoming a strength coach online, there's not a lot of regulation. And so that means that there are misunderstandings about what a healthy, a productive, and sustainable client-coach relationship actually looks like. And we've been working as coaches for, I think this is my 7th year as a coach online in particular. And I've seen a lot of relationship dynamics over that period of time. And one of the things that I recognize is that the clients who have a healthy relationship with their coach tend to have a healthier relationship with their own training, with their abilities, and with their confidence in the gym, out of the gym, like, and how they just relate to it. And I think it's really crucial that we are emphasizing that.
Totally. Yeah, I have nothing to add.
Well, one of the other things I want to add about like the goal is ultimately we want to cultivate strength for life. We want to teach 10,000 people how to cultivate strength for life. We want to give them the tools and the resources and the knowledge for them to do that. And that's why we have such an emphasis on this community-driven training or community-driven programming, because we can't predict what everyone in the community will need in order to grow. Some people will need more emphasis on mental training or mental health. Some people will need more of an emphasis on creating sustainable nutrition methods. Some people are going to need to have relatively individualized, or I would say semi-individualized programming. When you join the community, you are influencing the way in which we share, the way in which we educate.
Yeah.
But in order for us to basically write programs that work, we need to know what's working for you.
Yeah.
So that is effectively what community-driven programming is. Meaning if you join the community and you're having problems or you're noticing there isn't a program that suits your goals or matches what you want to do, then it's our responsibility as coaches to build programs that align closer to your goals, or maybe have higher or lower stress loads, more exercise selection, higher or lower intensities. Basically, we want to build a library of programs that is driven by the community and what their actual needs are, versus, hey, Sibo, I think this is a good program. What do you think? And then we just upload it without knowing if it's helpful or useful for the community.
Yeah, I think in a large part, the community helps with the sustainability, right? Like even if you have a one-on-one coaching, and the problem with the one-on-one coaching is just that you have a limited amount of people you can work with. You can be the the greatest coach in the world, but you cannot coach 100 people at a time.
No.
At least I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if somebody else can. I doubt it. But yeah, and I think the community is so great because the community evolves. We evolve and we figure out what may be interesting avenues for people in order to be sustainable with their strength journey, right? And then we have this programming part where I think we have a very good idea what good programs can be for people. We have 25 years of
collective experience,
coaching experience, but at the same time, the nice thing about the community-driven programming is that people can actually give us ideas or like say, hey, for me, I don't know, like I would really wish we would have a focus on these kinds of things or like mix those kinds of things, especially because strength is not only tied to the main lifts, for instance, right? I mean, you have a powerlifting background.
Mm-hmm.
I have some kind of a powerlifting background too, but there are all kinds of different strength exercises. And I really like the idea that the community can actually help us as coaches to make it more suitable for them. And at the same time, we will try our best to give the most value to them back, right?
Yeah. And like what I really wanted to do with the process is like when you join the ZAO Strength community, we have a base level of programs, and that's intentional. I didn't want to start out the community with like 8,000 programs up front. I wanted to start with basic programs that if you've never trained before, you'll have something that will give you a good start. And it's not hype driven. Like I don't have a lot of programs where it's like, this is the, squat blaster 5,000. It's going to give you like 800 pounds in increase of your total in a year or something.
And your knee explodes.
Yeah. But what it is a baseline. So we have base strength, base hypertrophy, and base power building as 3 of the 6 currently available programs, all of which are the base structure for you to initiate your journey within powerlifting, bodybuilding, or kind of a hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
And my intention is that if people initiate with that program, not everyone that joins is going to be a beginner, but it will probably be good to have a baseline built, and then we can build from the baseline. That's kind of the pinnacle aspect of our one-on-one coaching, is that we build everything from the bottom up. So how do we take bottom-up programming and bottom-up training to the masses? One way could be that we at least implement some aspects of that to the community, where we start minimal and we add to that base, and where the average lifter or the majority of the people in the community are leading towards. And so that way we can kind of create a path for success for almost everybody.
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea, at least.
Yeah, I think it's just a question of time, that we may need, or there's maybe a certain gap between what some people want until we have a program for it. But it is so interesting, even for me as a coach, to to have the input of the people in order to spark my creativity, because
it's so exciting.
It's super exciting, because if you get if you get input from, I don't know, like a couple of hundred people, it's different than having 12 people in your coaching, and at the same time, you need to find some kind of a mass solution for several people, but it's also, not just, that's a general strength program for everybody, and I think that is a huge chance in order to help people out.
Yeah, like you said, it will take time to develop this journey. That's why we don't want to lay out all out in front of you, because we don't know what you're going to respond well to. And both of us know that we have had athletes one-on-one that respond drastically different to different levels of frequency, to different protocols, intensities, volumes. And of course, this isn't fully customized, but I do want to make sure that our programs are acknowledging these differences, so that, again, as someone joins the community and they're like, hey, I need a bench specific program because I'm really prioritizing my bench press, it's very likely that other people are also interested in something like that. And it'll be very clear for people who are just joining to figure out, okay, this style of training is something I'm interested in, and this is what it looks like. And so they can kind of predict a little bit more of what their experience will be to kind of meet them where they're at. That's the intention.
Yeah, I really like that. It's also, I mean, we will also help the people with some sort of guidance, how to find the correct program for them. And I think in the future it will be super interesting because I'm just curious how this will look 1 year down the road. Like what kinds of programs will we have? In which direction will we develop? And it may be probably mostly driven by the community, not by us. I mean, now we uploaded a couple of programs where we knew, that will probably fit for a lot of people. But at the same time, it's like, where will we be in 1 year down the road? And I think it's a super interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, especially because of every coach's background too.
Yeah,
the input from the same person in the community might spark a different idea from every one of the coaches. So we have all of our own individual creative solutions that we develop. But then obviously we all talk, figure out, okay, well, this is what I was thinking based on what they were saying, or based on what people are talking about right now. And then we could even create multiple programs based on one problem. With many different potential solutions. And again, with the guidance, like we want to guide you in that direction. So it might sound a little bit chaotic right now with where we would want to go, but my intention is every decision we make is still calculated and thoughtful. Then we're combining the creative aspects of each one of the coaches to solve one problem. But then many people may have a similar problem, but need different solutions for that problem. And so we have all these coaches to do like multiple, creative problem solving program development sessions all at once.
I think the important thing is that you have coaches who are all in order to like drive solutions for different problems. And you said it's chaotic, but at the same time I'm like, it's almost necessary. It's like we need to be flexible in order to make it work. And I mean, we can be open about it. It gives us a base level of anxiety a little bit. It's like, how will people perceive this? And that's why we're currently talking about it. But at the same time, I think people do understand that it's like, it is necessary. You can we cannot just sit down for, 1,000 hours and write random programs and come up with programs which people actually maybe not even want. It's like, It's more like almost like it gives you confidence because you're like, we have a shit ton of programs with all this kinds of variations. But at the same time, it's like, maybe people wanted something completely different.
And they literally get to influence the programs that we're making. So it's not like, it's not like, okay, cool, we'll go on our own. And one aspect of the community that I'm really excited about is if you're especially join early to the community, then you have more of an influence on the next programs. And one of the things we want to guarantee is 5 new programs per month. Those are all community-driven programs too. So if there's a collective idea or an individual idea that really sparks with us and we don't have yet a solution for that problem, that's where one of those 5 programs could be developed.
Totally. I think, that's what I said. Like we as the coaches, we're all in the process, and I'm really curious about like the initial responses we get in terms of what people want and how they want us to shape the programs. Do you want to talk a little bit about like the community aspect and like how
outside of the programming and everything?
Maybe outside of the programming, but like how people actually are able to like shape the programs?
Yeah. So I think one of the major aspects of our community is it's all happening on Discord, and every single day of the week we have some kind of something different going on. So part of it is we have like Mindful Mondays, for example, where we encourage the community to talk about a way in which they're making mindfulness a part of their lifestyle. And that on its own might not influence anything, but it does get the conversation started. Okay, this is part of this aspect of my life is potentially influencing how I'm responding to training, right? And then we are going to have things like Form Check Friday, right? Where we're actually looking at the technique of the lifters that we're working with.
Yeah.
And that could potentially influence creative ideas about more of the programs need these types of exercises to help with these types of technique. We also want to have weekly or monthly live like podcasts. So like coaching chats where we have athletes have specific problems, and then something like this that you're watching right now, we'd have on our community where we talk about the problems that people are having and potentially bring up solutions, together, as well as I don't know what else we got going on.
I think what is important to understand is that like sustainability also is related to a long-term thought, right? So some things in the community, maybe, as you said, they don't have like an immediate impact on like your training, for instance, but that's what the mission is all about, because like you want to be, I'm not saying, it's like, oh, it's all happy every time. And like you're always happy when you go to the gym and like each training session gives you like, I don't know, you're always in the happy place. But at the same time, it's like, how can we create an environment where people feel empowered and where when they go into the gym, they feel like, hey, this program helps me out with my long-term goals and supports my lifestyle in general. And it's not like, oh, it's a huge pain in the ass and a sacrifice, which I need to make in order to get stronger. And I think that's what the community is also about, like how can we support people on their strength journey in order to make it work for the whole life.
Yes.
And yeah, and I think that's where the programs come in, because sometimes maybe there's a program a specific person is looking for where he's like, oh, I don't know, I feel like it doesn't really fit into like my general schedule, like my weekly schedule, for instance. And I think we can also come in there and like build a program for them, for instance, right? It's like I think after a while there will be a huge selection of programs where people with all kinds of different schedules can find something.
And I think that's the biggest key, is that it doesn't have to be like, oh, well, I like squatting, or I like bodybuilding more, or like I like powerlifting, I like bodybuilding more. It can also be, I like powerlifting, but I don't like powerlifting 6 days a week. I want to powerlift 3 days a week. Can we find a program that matches the things that I like within that schedule? And so, like you said, you can have all the fun that you want, and you can have the lifestyle that you want, and still lift and take it seriously. As we talked about earlier, sometimes the fun thing is the thing that's going to give you the most growth. But you also evolve as a person. And so you might realize that at some point in your life, you do just want to train 4 or 5 days a week. And that is what brings you joy. That is what brings you happiness. Totally. Because all of us, I think, have had that period of our life where I just want to get strong. I just want to lift. I don't care about anything. And that the sustainability isn't like, okay, this is the program that you're doing. That is the sustainable program. The sustainability comes in time, as you mentioned, as you evolve and as your program evolves with you, right?
And there's nothing wrong with chasing performance, right? I feel like chasing performance and like really sacrificing your mental health, for instance, long term, that may not be the smartest move to make, But I think that's also like what we want to teach in the community, maybe like how can people actually maybe even goal setting, right? Like how can they set goals which are healthy for them, or which program can they do in order to make more progress, but still not end up in a very bad spot.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the main idea that we want to emphasize is, again, this is something that's going to evolve with you over time. And again, the earlier you enroll, the more influence you're going to have over the group aspect. But because we're working together over time, maybe there's not a program that matches every single one of your wants and needs, but most of them. And then you can modify it like as you go to make it even more, like to really solidify it. And I think that's where the true power is, because for my own training, the biggest limiter, and for a lot of the limitations of athletes, it's not the program, it's more the access to creative options
Oh yeah.
that people miss. Like, one of the best things about having a coach is you get to have like their collective knowledge and their collective creative solutions for solving training problems. Because when you first start out training, you think like, all right, what's the best? What's the optimal?
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn like, all right, 4 days a week squatting, benching, 3 days a week squatting, and 2 days a week deadlifting is the optimal training approach. And then you do that for a while and you're like, oh, I don't know, this isn't really working well for me. I wonder why. And you can continue to solve that problem for yourself, but you can also reach out to a coach that has already kind of seen that problem just develop and has already come up with a wide variety of creative solutions. Because the whole point of coaching is that you're solving the problems that the average, study wouldn't exactly explain for you on its own, right?
And I also think that also, we have the educating component in the community. Like, we want to do weekly presentations on certain topics. And I think some of those presentations will also be related to programming, right? And I think that is also important, because when people may start with a certain program, they may realize, oh, it's kind of like good, like it's a good program for me, but maybe I need to tweak some things, right? And the self-educating component may help them in order to make those tweaks,
right?
And that is, in my opinion, like a really big benefit, because now like, we cannot build a program for each person in the community, maybe in the beginning, but not on the later stages. But we may be able to help in order to like modify the programs. And I feel like that definitely creates an additional value for the customer.
And the one thing on top of that is, because they have this training app that they get access to, they can you can go in the calendar and you can add any exercise that you want. You can track your progress for all the exercises. So you literally have the programs as starting points. And then if you want to add exercises or modify the protocols, it's really easy to do that. It's not like a PDF where you're like, all right, this is the program, and then you try to like remember what you did last time. It's like, you get all the creative ideas, you can send it to your calendar, and then you can make the modifications that you need to if you start realizing like, hey, actually I want to increase the intensity by one RPE unit, right?
Yeah.
And so with that education that you're talking about, I think it allows that. And like, as an athlete, and as an athlete, that's super valuable for me, because that means I don't need someone to make all those decisions for me. But if I want them to, I can allow it, and I can just ride the wave.
Yeah.
But if I want to change things up, because a lot of people like program hopping, it's almost encouraged sometimes, especially when you're starting out, to like try a lot of different strategies so you know what's available. Because one of the biggest limiters, again, is not even knowing what's possible, what's available. The programs that we've developed together for our athletes, like, you can't find them in books.
Yeah.
You're not going to find them in a study. You're not going to find them really anywhere, because the studies are concepts, and then the coach takes those concepts
to practice
and makes them custom made for the person. So the one last thing I wanted to add is, what else do we think is important if you're questioning like what ZAO Strength is? Oh, I just want to bring this up. Wondering why the word ZAO. What the heck is ZAO? Well, ZAO is an ancient Greek word, and it means to live or to experience life. And I found this word in my own strength journey, trying to figure out how I can connect more with myself, with like the world, and as a daily reminder to experience life, not just to exist, but to live. And so strong for life means the fundamental aspect of like life is that you are here, you're present, you are actually engaging and interacting with the world to experience life. So ZAO is that experience of life, and strength is through strength you can experience life. So if you're interested in the details, I probably won't bring this up too many times unless a lot of people ask. But
also, like, relating to my high performance competitors, it's also not just living to perform, like, oh, I'm just alive to compete and perform and beat people, just living for the outcome. I think that's a huge thing.
So if you guys are interested So if you're interested in joining the ZAO Strength community, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on Instagram, just click the link in our bio to sign up, to enroll. If you have any questions, definitely let us know in the comments. We really want to get this thing rolling. We're really excited to finally launch after the last 3 or 4 months of working on it. And we really hope that it solves your training problems, and we can come up with solutions that are valuable and useful for you. So anything else you want to say on that note, Seba?
I don't think so. I'm happy to help when any questions arise.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.